All right, today we're going to unlock a beautiful and I think kind of cryptic message from Korea's past. We're going to decode a classical poem character by character to really get a feel for not just what it says, but how it feels. So if you've ever been curious about hanja, those characters that are the building blocks of so much Korean literature, this is going to be a really fascinating journey. So here it is, the poem in its original calligraphy. It's just each short lines, but wow, they paint an entire universe of meaning. We are going to decode this work by a poet named Jeong Saryong, together, piece by piece. And we're going to start with its incredibly evocative title, which is honestly a poem all by itself. Okay, let's break down these 4 hanja characters in the title. You can hear the Korean sounds suk, min, jong, pil. So suk means to release. Release what? Well, the next character tells us, min, which is that bottled up feeling of frustration. Then we have jong, which means to do as one pleases. I love the translation freewheeling. And finally, pil, which is the writing brush. So you see, right from the title, we get the poet's entire mission statement. This isn't just a poem, it's an act of therapy, right? It's an artist using their tool, their brush, to let go of all that worldly frustration and find a bit of freedom. That really sets the stage for everything that's about to follow. So let's move into the opening scene and see how he builds on this idea, character by character. The poet starts by creating the scene of just quiet contemplation. So here are the building blocks of the first 2 lines. You have sui, which means following one's thoughts. Then tanso, to spread open a book. Jwa, to sit. See how it's building an action? Then goom, to recite poetry alone. De, to face something. And finally, manhui, that beautiful evening glow. Each little pair of characters here creates his perfect little image. This opening, it just paints such a powerful picture of his release. He's deliberately stepping away from all the noise, all the obligations of the world. And it kind of suggests that real peace, it doesn't start with changing the world, but with changing our own little space. Just creating a corner for some intentional, peaceful solitude. Okay, so now that he's set the stage for his inner state, the poet turns his gaze outward, from his study to the natural world right outside, and he finds a pretty profound lesson waiting for him there. So the poet uses this really simple but powerful imagery here. Anpong, the shore wind. Bembuk, the sail's belly. What a great visual, right? And po, which just means full. Then you have Sa'u, the rain on the sandy shore, and Jakya, the reed shoot. And finally, Bi, which means to get plump, to thrive. It's all about this effortless sense of growth and fullness. The lesson here is so elegant. He's just observing the beauty of things being enough as they are. A sail doesn't have to be greedy to catch the wind. It just has to open itself up. A reed doesn't need ambition to grow. It just accepts the rain. This is nature's law of contentment, and it's exactly the mindset the poet is trying to find for himself. And now the poet's focus narrows down even more. He goes from the wind and the shore to these small, imperfect details right in front of him. And this, I think, is where the poem gets really intimate. He's not looking for some grand, perfect vista. No, he sees igyur, a broken fence. But through it, kongsek, the river's color, kong, flows through. Then yumsu, a hanging screen, hinders, jappi, the flight of a butterfly. He's actually finding poetry and flaws, and what we might see as minor inconveniences. This is huge. It shows that he's reached this really deep inner peace. He's not bothered by the broken fence. In fact, he sees it as an opening that lets beauty come in. He isn't annoyed by the screen blocking the butterfly. He just observes it as part of the whole scene. He's finding meaning not in perfection, but in the small, flawed, fleeting moments of life. And now for the final 2 lines that bring it all home. This is really the philosophical heart of the entire poem, and it contains a super important cultural reference we need to unpack. So to really get this line, we have to know this term, yogi. It comes from a famous story about Confucius. He asks his disciples about their greatest ambitions, and one of them says his dream is just to go bathe in the Ye River on a spring day, enjoy the breeze, and then sing on his way home. And Confucius totally approved. He saw it as the ideal state of being, a life of simple, profound joy, completely free from worldly ambition. So let's see how our poet connects his own situation to this huge ideal. He starts with a rhetorical question, Subuji, who would know? Who could possibly understand this yogijo, this perfect yogi feeling? And then he reveals his own condition, hwabyong. While healing from an illness, he sichunui tries on his spring clothes. The poet's conclusion here is just beautiful. He asks, who could possibly understand this perfect feeling of contentment? And then he answers his own question. Even though he's sick, his body is imperfect, even though he can't literally go bathe in the river, he finds that exact same profound yogi joy in the simple, hopeful act of trying on his spring clothes. It's such a powerful statement that true peace is an inside job, completely independent of our external circumstances. So after decoding this amazing meditation on contentment, we're left with one last really fascinating question. Who was this poet, Jeong Saryong? I mean, was his life as serene and peaceful as his poem? Well, this is where we find a stark, almost shocking paradox. The person in the poem seeks simple joys and is content with nature. But the historical Jeong Saryong, he was a high-ranking government official who, according to the records, was criticized for being greedy and violent and corrupt. So the serene art stands in direct, complete opposition to the turbulent life of the artist. And that just leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Was this poem an honest expression of a fleeting moment of peace he actually felt? Or was it an aspiration, a longing for a virtue that he knew he didn't possess? It's a question that really challenges us to think about the complicated relationship between art and the artist. Can a flawed person create something beautiful and true? And does knowing their story deepen how we read their work, or does it just complicate it? There really is no easy answer.